Every tradition that takes spiritual reality seriously has to answer the same question eventually: where do demons come from? Christianity gives you a surface answer: fallen angels. But if you actually read the book of Enoch, you run into a problem. The fallen angels are not free. The Watcher, who taught metalworking and weapons, Azazel, is bound under jagged rocks in the desert of Dudael. He cannot move. The other 200 who descended on Mount Hermon are imprisoned in a valley until the final judgment. The book of Enoch is very specific about this. The fallen angels, the Watchers, are locked away. They are not wandering the earth. They are not entering people's bodies. They are not doing what demons do. So when Jesus stands in front of a man in the synagogue and a voice shouts, "What do you want with us, Son of God? Have you come to destroy us before the appointed time?" What is he talking to? When the disciples cast out evil spirits and come back reporting that even demons submit to them, what are those spirits? The book of Enoch answers this in chapter 15. And the answer is not the fallen angels themselves. The answer is their children, the Nephilim. And what that answer does to your understanding of evil and of spiritual warfare is something nobody in church ever told you. To understand what happens to the Nephilim after the flood, you need to understand what they were before it. The book of Enoch, chapter 7 and chapter 15, give you the anthropology of the Nephilim in precise terms. The Watchers were heavenly beings, created as spiritual entities, dwelling in the highest heavens, belonging to the spiritual order of reality. When they descended and took human wives, they produced offspring that were genuinely new, beings who were simultaneously of two natures. From their Watcher fathers, they inherited spiritual substance, the divine component that made the angels what they were. From their human mothers, they inherited physical, mortal bodies. They were not simply large humans with supernatural strength. They were hybrid entities who existed at the intersection of two different orders of being. The book of Enoch calls them born from men and from the holy Watchers. Both parentages are named. Both are essential to understanding what the Nephilim were. And this dual nature is why their fate after death is unlike anything else in the cosmology. Human beings, when they die, are fully human. Their souls go to the four chambers of Sheol. Angels who fall are fully angelic. They are imprisoned by other angels. But the Nephilim were neither. When their physical bodies were destroyed in the flood, the question was, where does a half-human, half-Watcher soul go? The answer is that it does not go anywhere. It stays. When the flood came, everything died. The Nephilim were not exempt. Their enormous physical bodies, the source of the violence and the terror the book of Enoch describes, were destroyed. But the problem was what came next. The book of Enoch has a precise cosmology of death. Human souls, at death, go to the four chambers in the mountain in the west, the place Raphael shows Enoch in chapter 22. Each chamber holds a different category of the dead, sealed away until the final judgment. But those chambers were made for human souls. And the Nephilim were not fully human. The divine component they inherited from their Watcher fathers meant their souls were not purely human souls. They did not simply go to Sheol. And the Watchers themselves, those who were imprisoned, could not receive their children's spirits because they were locked away. The Nephilim spirits had nowhere to go. No realm would receive them. Heaven rejected them because they were born of women, born of flesh. The underworld was not designed for them because they were born of Watchers, born of spirit. They were between. And in the cosmology of the book of Enoch, Being between realms does not mean dissolving into nothing. It means becoming something specific, something that belongs to this world precisely because it has no other world to belong to. The earth is the realm of the flesh, and the Nephilim were the children of flesh. Before the decree about the Nephilim comes, the Book of Enoch records something that frames everything else. The imprisoned watchers, the 200 who swore the oath on Mount Hermon, send Enoch as their intercessor. They cannot speak to God themselves. They are too ashamed. So they ask Enoch, the one righteous man, to carry a petition on their behalf. They want mercy. They want their sentence reduced. In chapter 14, Enoch approaches the divine throne, the chariot throne of God, the vision that will later undergird Ezekiel's chariot vision, and the entire tradition of Merkabah mysticism. And God's response, delivered to Enoch in chapter 15, is not mercy, it is a verdict. And the verdict begins not with the Nephilim, but with an accusation against the Watchers themselves. You were spiritual beings. You were made to intercede for humans, not to take human wives. You were created without physical needs. No hunger, no lust, no mortality. You crossed the boundary deliberately. And because you deliberately crossed from the spiritual into the physical, you gave your children a nature that belongs to the physical world. The Nephilim are your responsibility. What they become is a consequence of what you chose. This framing is essential because what follows, the decree about the Nephilim spirits, is not an arbitrary fate imposed on the Nephilim. It is the logical consequence of their origin. God is not punishing the Nephilim. God is describing what they are. 1 Enoch chapter 15, verses 8 through 10. This is the passage, quote, "And now the giants, who are produced from the spirits and flesh, shall be called evil spirits upon the earth, and on the earth shall be their dwelling. Evil spirits have proceeded from their bodies, because they are born from men, and from the holy watchers is their beginning and primal origin. They shall be evil spirits on earth, and evil spirits shall they be called." End quote. Read that again slowly. The giants were produced from spirits, the watchers, and flesh, human women. They are called evil spirits upon the earth, not in the underworld, not imprisoned, on the earth. Their dwelling is the earth. The text then explains why. Because they are born from men, and from the holy watchers is their beginning. Their dual nature determines their destination. They came from the earth. They were born on the earth, in flesh, through human mothers. And so the earth is where they return. The spiritual half of them, the part that survives physical death, belongs to no other realm. It belongs to the one place their flesh knew. And notice what the text does not say. It does not say they are punished with this fate. It says, this is their nature. This is what they are. The evil spirits that wander the earth are not here because they are being tortured. They are here because they have nowhere else to go. The question worth pressing on is the obvious one. Why couldn't the Nephilim souls go to the 4 chambers in the mountain that Raphael showed Enoch? That cosmology was clearly in place. The chambers existed. So why weren't the Nephilim souls gathered there? The Book of Enoch doesn't explain this directly, but the logic is embedded in the structure of what it describes. The 4 chambers in chapter 22 are categorized by a single principle: the nature of the dead person's moral relationship to other human beings. 1 chamber for the righteous, 1 for sinners who have been judged, 1 for the murdered whose cry is not yet answered, 1 for the partially guilty who will receive no resurrection. Every category assumes you are dealing with a fully human soul, a soul whose moral standing is assessed against what a human being was supposed to be. But the Nephilim were not judged by human standards. God's decree against the Watchers in chapter 15 specifically contrasts their behavior against their nature as spiritual beings. They are held accountable as spiritual beings, not as humans. The Nephilim inherit this ambiguity. They were not judged as humans because they were not fully human. They were not judged as angels because they were also not fully angelic. They fell between the categories, and the metaphysical consequence of falling between categories in this cosmology is that you belong to the liminal space, the earth itself, the realm between the heavens above and the underworld below. The Book of Enoch does not stop at naming what these spirits are. It tells you what they do. 1 Enoch chapter 15, verse 11. And these spirits shall rise up against the children of men and against the women, because they have proceeded from them. Verse 12. And until the day of the great judgment, in which they shall be judged, they shall do evil, they shall destroy, they attack, oppress, afflict, do battle on the earth. The list in the original Ethiopic is comprehensive and physical. They attack from without and corrupt from within. Notice the specificity of why they target human beings, because they have proceeded from them. The evil spirits are drawn to human beings because human beings are the source they came from. The Nephilim were born of human mothers. The flesh they crave, the embodied existence they lost at the flood, was human flesh. So they are drawn back to it. They are drawn to inhabit what they once were, to experience again the embodied existence their fathers sacrificed for them before they were even born. This is not metaphor. The Book of Enoch presents it as a description of how things actually work, the mechanics behind spiritual oppression, behind possession, behind the forces that the ancient world experienced as malevolent presences. The demons are homesick for a home that no longer exists, and they take out that absence on the creatures who still have what they lost. The next chapter, 1 Enoch 16, adds a timeline. These evil spirits will continue in their activity until the day of the great judgment. They are not permanent. They have an end date, and this temporal limit is exactly what you find in the New Testament. In Matthew chapter 8, when Jesus confronts the demons in the Gadarene man, they say something precise. Have you come to torment us before the time? They know about the appointed time. They know about the judgment. They know they are operating on borrowed time between the flood and the final judgment. And they are afraid that Jesus is here to end that window early. In Luke chapter 8, the same account, the demons beg Jesus not to send them into the abyss. The abyss is not hell in the final judgment sense. The abyss is the equivalent of the imprisonment that the Watchers themselves are already in, the sealed-away realm outside the earth, the place the evil spirits cannot occupy because they belong to the earth. They are begging Jesus not to revoke their temporary lease on this world before the appointed time expires. When you read the exorcism accounts in the Gospels against the backdrop of 1 Enoch 15 and 16, everything that seems strange or inexplicable in those accounts suddenly becomes precise. The demons know the cosmology. They are living inside it, and they know exactly how much time they have left. What makes all of this important beyond the Book of Enoch itself is how widely this theology was held in the Second Temple period. The Book of Jubilees, written in the 2nd century before the Common Era, found in the Dead Sea Scrolls at Qumran, directly expands 1 Enoch's account of the Nephilim spirits. In Jubilees chapter 10, Noah is watching these evil spirits, the spirits of the dead Nephilim, afflicting and leading astray his grandchildren after the flood. He prays that God would bind all of them, and a figure called Mashtema, the chief of the evil spirits, intervenes. He asks God to leave 10% of the evil spirits active and free so that Mashtema can exercise authority through them on earth. God agrees. 9 parts are bound. 1 part remains under Mashtema's command. This negotiation in Jubilees is describing the same beings as 1 Enoch 15, the disembodied Nephilim spirits, but through the lens of a different text written within the same broad tradition. The Dead Sea Scrolls contain exorcism prayers, texts designed specifically to ward off these spirits, alongside copies of the Book of Enoch itself. This was not fringe theology. This was the mainstream Jewish understanding of what evil spirits were and where they came from in the Second Temple period. It was the water the New Testament swam in. When the Pharisees asked Jesus by what authority he cast out demons, they were not asking about the existence of demons. They already knew what demons were. The first-century Jewish world Jesus walked into was deeply saturated with this theology. The Pharisees, the Essenes, the ordinary synagogue-goer in Galilee, they did not ask where demons come from. They knew. The question they were asking was what to do about them. When Jesus heals the man in the synagogue at Capernaum in Mark chapter 1, the reaction of the crowd is not confusion about who these beings are. It is astonishment that he can command them with such authority. They already knew demons were real. They already knew roughly what they were. What astonished them was the power. In the same way, when Jesus asks the demon its name in the Gadarene encounter, and it says, "My name is Legion, for we are many," this is a Nephilim spirit, identifying itself as one of a vast collective of disembodied beings, all crowding into one body, because that is what they do. That is their nature. They were once among the largest beings that ever walked the earth. Now, they are compressed into the body of one man. That desperation is not arbitrary. It is the consequence of losing bodies in the flood. The word unclean, applied to these spirits, carries specific priestly meaning. They are of mixed kind, belonging to no clean category. And Matthew chapter 12 gives you perhaps the clearest window. When an unclean spirit goes out of a person, it wanders seeking rest and finds none. It wanders. That is 1 Enoch 15, expressed in the words of Jesus himself. The mechanics of possession in this framework are not mysterious. They are the logical consequence of what the Nephilim spirits are. These beings once had bodies. Before the flood, they existed in flesh, enormous, powerful, experiencing the material world fully. The flood ripped them out of that existence. Their bodies were destroyed. And 1 Enoch tells you that the earth is their dwelling, not the underworld, not the heavens. They are tethered to the physical world, but they have no physical form. They are hungry for what they once had. This is why Matthew records that when the unclean spirit wanders in the waterless places, the wilderness, the waste, it eventually says, "I will return to my house." The house is the body it left. And if it finds that house empty and put in order, it brings 7 worse spirits with it. The body is the house. Possession is the attempt to re-inhabit what the flood took away. And this is why Jesus sends the Gadarene demons into the pigs rather than simply casting them into the abyss. The pigs are not a punishment. They are an accommodation. The demons themselves are driven toward the nearest available flesh. Even animal bodies are preferable to wandering. The instant the pigs give them access, they enter, and the pigs are immediately driven to destruction. The flesh that the Nephilim spirits crave is not compatible with the life of the creature it inhabits. It never was. Even in the pre-flood world, wherever the Nephilim went, destruction followed. There is a larger theological claim embedded in what 1 Enoch 15 is doing. Most frameworks for understanding evil in the Western tradition lean toward the abstract. Evil is the privation of good, the corruption of order, the rebellion of will. The Book of Enoch's account of demons is something different. It is specific, historical, and personal. These evil spirits have a beginning. They were not part of the original order. They appeared in history as a consequence of a specific choice made by specific beings at a specific time. The Watchers chose to cross the boundary between the heavenly and the earthly. That choice produced the Nephilim. The Nephilim's violence and corruption produced the accusation that reached heaven. The flood destroyed their bodies. And the disembodied spirits that remained, the evil spirits, are not eternal forces. They are historical residue. They are the consequences of bad choices working themselves through a world where choices have consequences that outlast the chooser. And they have an end. 1 Enoch says so. Jubilees says so. The New Testament's demons say so. Before the time. The evil you encounter in this world is not permanent. It is not part of the original design. It appeared at a specific moment in history. It is operating on borrowed time. And it is heading toward a specific and appointed end. That is a very different understanding of evil than the one most people carry. And it comes from a text your church almost certainly never told you existed. If this is the first episode of Enoch Unveiled you've watched, every episode we make goes this deep. We go through the Book of Enoch verse by verse, the Dead Sea Scrolls, the Book of Jubilees, the Second Temple literature, the world that the New Testament was actually written into. These are the texts your church never covered, and we are not going to rush through them. Subscribe to Enoch Unveiled. Turn on notifications so you don't miss the next episode. And if today's episode shifted something in how you understand what a demon actually is, drop a comment below. Tell me what hit hardest. We just established that demons are the disembodied spirits of the dead Nephilim, that they are drawn to human flesh because they came from human flesh, that they know about the day of judgment and they are afraid of it, and that the first-century Jewish world understood all of this clearly. What does that change for you? I read every comment. Subscribe now and turn on notifications.